We're finding a spot on the trailer. So maybe you come talk about whitehead. This is a hard white spring wheat, so it's a really kind of a niche market. There are a few companies, so JGL out of Saskatchewan. They've been doing some contracting here in Saskatchewan. And then Rogers Foods, they also are interested in hard white spring wheat. So there's a few others out there, but those are kind of our main two that our customers are selling to. And supposed to have yields kind of like a Brandon, I would say, but any other thoughts on the whitehead, VB?
No, I think, Greg, it's a limited market, so we have very few shareholders growing this because it's like green peas, even smaller. So this one's an improvement as far as yield from the Cirrus. So we'll see. I mean, Greg will give me feedback, but it's a hard white. If you've got a contract or you're interested in that kind of stuff, then this is, you know, what you grow, right? So disease package is really good on it, but again, it's one of those end use things, so you're probably going to grow it if you have a contract. So
yeah, so if you are interested, Blair can connect it to JGL for next season. If you like doing unique things, this could be for you. But it's a smaller market. Now, if it went nowhere, you could still sell it for feed or whatever. Like you could, it's still just a wheat. But in the hard white wheat market, there could be some premiums, and especially if the yield is equal to a Brandon, you know, then maybe it's an advantage to your farm. But it's a very niche thing. And it's white, right? So it's going to not be prone to bleaching. So if you do have some rain at harvest or something, well, it's probably going to look the same. Brandon, industry standard. Ezra, anything you want to say about Brandon? But yeah, we still sell a bit of Brandon every year, and other varieties kind of come up and go, and then but yeah, Brandon still kind of has that base yield across the prairies, I would say. Ezra, you can come talk about Oakman a little bit. So this won't be available till next fall, so a year and a half from now. But yeah, the kind of the newest solid stem wheat.
Yeah, we're excited about this one. It's got a solid stem, and it's midge tolerant, so it's kind of best of both worlds. I was just handed these plants, and if you want to come and see the expression of the solid stem in it.
So what variety is that? Oakman, okay.
This is Oakman. So, yeah, I don't know all the science behind the solid stem, but I do know that it's really hard to get solid stem expression in hard red, and usually your best bet with soft lie is to go to a Durham or something. So we're very excited about this. And yeah, it'll be available next year.
Yeah, and so stem solidness will vary by variety and by year. So environmental conditions can play an impact on how solid a stem is as well. But yeah, if you come look at the stems here, they are super solid in this plot. Keep in mind though, 10% of this variety is not a solid stem. The refuge, is it Brandon? Okay. Yeah, so this will be available not this winter, but the following winter from us. If you look at the leaves, it looks like there's kind of I feel like I want to call that leaf tip necrosis, but you'll see that in certain, I learned this from Harpinder, the breeder in Lethbridge there. Yeah, do you want to speak on that? Or you just want to look at it? Okay. Yeah, well, it's a form of rust resistance genetically in some varieties. So maybe you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, there are a number of rust resistance genes. The technical name is that they're ABC transporters. That doesn't really mean a lot to most people, but there are some very effective, durable leaf rust genes, particularly leaf and stripe rust, that will cause this leaf tip necrosis, and those are LR34 and LR46 primarily, and this variety obviously has one or both of those.
Yeah, so if you see the leaf tips browning at this time of the year, it could be it's resisting rust that's coming in, which is happening in Western Canada right now. There is rust coming in.
It'll show up even if it's not resisting rust?
Okay, even if it's not resisting, you could see that showing up anyways, so. So Hawkley and Hodge. Colette, what do you want to say about these ones? We've sold these for a couple years now. We're not seeing a whole lot of standability difference in here, so maybe we will later, but for now, everything's kind of standing similarly, but Hawkley's a pretty good standing variety.
That's what I would say. I know in Alberta, Hodge has definitely had its, it came out of the co-ops with very good yield numbers. It definitely has its places in Alberta, but I wouldn't say it's dominant compared to, because Wheatland seemed to have a better fit for more of those places than the Hodge did. Really well in Three Hills area, but I wouldn't call it an irrigation variety. Hawkley's much better at for standing, and much better, I would say, probably even in yield because of the standability. So it does fit in a few areas, but it is a little taller and it will lodge a little bit more, so, and more than Wheatland, right? So, which is the competitor. So if you have lodging pressure, you're probably going to pick one over the other. Hawkley's been around for, I guess, 3 years on the market. The yield is very good. It loves water. So it's one of those ones where when we get in a drought, all the varieties look the same. Sometimes people, it didn't yield more. Go yielded the same as Hawkley, which yielded the same as Brandon, which yielded, under drought conditions. So, but underwater, you should see that yield differentiation, and it's got a good disease package. And I think CCAN will talk about their next incarnation of Brandon, and we also have one coming up that Greg will probably have in his plots next year that will be replacing our Hawkley as well for people who want a replacement, right? So.
Yeah, we seem to cycle through varieties here, so some do stick around, but some come and go. So I think the people that are walking, let's just move forward a little. The truck can probably stay for now until we're out of the hard red spring wheats, I think. So the Westking, for those of you that are curious what winter wheat looks like when you plant it in the spring, that's what's between the plots here. So we just fill that in to suppress weeds. But that's what a winter wheat planted at the same time as these looks like in the now. So no mowing, no anything. It just sits there and hangs out. So why don't you talk about Westking, Esri? It's up and coming. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited about Westking. It's gearing up to be our Brandon replacement. We did a winter increase in New Zealand this year, and this will be available at the same time as Oakman. Just builds off of everything that Brandon is and was.
Yeah, so a year and a half we can start selling, not this winter, but the following. I know all the reps always get whenever I say that, but I want to start selling like now. As soon as it's available, let's get booking. Manus. You see a few ragged heads in there. That's pretty typical for Manus. So it seems like over time, spring wheats have become a little more ragged looking than they used to. Just as natural the way the varieties are. And the funny thing is, even if you go and pull those, you'll see them the next year. It's almost like it's just part of the genetics amongst some of these varieties. But Manus will have a few more taller ones in there. This variety won our yield trials last year. If you look in the Alberta Seed Guide, it's like 5% less than everything else in there. But in our plots, it was 5% more. And so we sometimes do see some weird things happening. Colette, do you want to comment? But super good for standing.
So I can probably tell you why in the seed guide. It looks a little lower yielding. This variety acts very much from a rooting standpoint like traditional CPSs did. So it spreads more laterally and a little more shallow rooted than, say, a Hawkley or a Brandon or a traditional CWRS. So when you put them in RVT trials, a lot of those locations suit a traditional CWRS more than this style. So, and you don't get any type of, so that's usually what happens is, so high yielding stuff where you can put the management and you can put the water to it, although this one has a decent disease package on it because it was bred in Canada. That's why you're probably seeing that differentiations. A lot of those sites are not intensive sites. And this is a variety for those type of conditions. Irrigation, central Alberta where they're like their CPSs because they get the yield out of it. It needs to have the moisture because of that rooting structure. When you get dry, if you're in a dry area, it will go the other way because it'll run out of, it doesn't tap as deep as the CWRSs, traditional ones.
And you can farm save 1 year off certified on the same acres. Same as the rates?
Yeah, so all the Syngenta varieties, if you see an SY, it's all under that same program. You can save 1 year off certified, and then you have to go back for new seed. But this one's a yielder, and it's short, and that's why you see that variable expression sometimes, because it's just a variation of expression of that semi-dwarf gene. So especially on tillers, you will see a little bit of variability. Hawkley expresses that same thing too, and Brandon did too a little bit. It's just Brandon's a bit taller. So
thank you. Stoughton, I heard someone from CCAN say that Stoughton was somewhere between a Wheatland and what's the other VB that's, sorry? Yeah, Starbuck. It's somewhere in between those two. Am I wrong? Do I misremember? Or?
No, I think that's right. Stoughton's kind of our, I think of it as hand in hand with Westking, because Westking's going to be our new Brandon, and Stoughton looks like it could replace our Wheatland and Starbuck if you're looking for midge tolerant. The refuge in Stoughton is Westking as well, so yeah, it's looking promising. It looked good at Egg in Motion last week, and yeah.
Yeah, so a year and a half from now, it'll be available similar to the Westking, so they're kind of coming up at the same time. And then Wheatland, we sold a lot of that variety. Seems to stand, seems to pump out the yield. We'll see how it compares to the Manus in this year's trials, but it's always near the top of our trials for sure. And yeah, and VBs, I mean, we don't have a lot of midge in this area, but a lot of these VB varieties just seem to do well. So a little more paperwork, but if the variety's good, the variety's good, right? So, yeah. Any questions on CWRS? Yeah.
Wheatland's not a solid stem, is it?
No. The only solid stems that are out there would be Adamant, and it's not a full, like it's a semi-solid. And so we do have Adamant. Actually, it's not in our plots, but this coming fall, if you need a solid stem CWS, got Adamant in production on dryland, and we're actually going to get some crop off of it, thankfully, because it was one of our first planted fields. It looks pretty good, honestly. It's just, if you want to see it, the Enchant Park, if you go the road that is beside the park and go 1 mile to the south from the Enchant campground, that's where the, it's a mile down the road is where the, what was I talking about? What variety? Adamant, the Adamant. Too many varieties. So the Adamant would be our main pick for this fall if you want a solid stem or semi-solid stem hard red spring wheat. And then the next year we'll be moving on to the Oakman as our true semi-solid, I would call it. Yes. Fall, yeah, not this winter, but the next winter. So fall of 25. I can start selling fall of 25, that true solid stem. Oh yeah, that's the Oakman that we're saying is a year and a half from now. Yeah. Paul, let's can we move the truck forward? Thanks, Paul.